Hello and welcome to the Matchbook Champions League podcast. I'm Phil Kitromilides. We're back and we're delighted to be back. The world has changed a little bit since the last time we did one of these podcasts, but it's nice to be back, providing a bit of constancy to everyone out there. And we've got two fantastic Champions League semi-finals for us to look forward to. Joining me today on the podcast, and it's not just a podcast, because we're live on Facebook, we're live on Twitter, we're live on Matchbook's YouTube account as well. So if you are watching live, please feel free to get in touch and tell us your comments in the comments section. But joining me today on the show, we've got Ian Broadrick, we've got Mark O'Hare, and we've also got Aidan O'Sullivan from Matchbook as well. Can't wait to hear the guys' thoughts ahead of these two intriguing semi-finals in the Champions League. Before we do that, though, a quick word from Sully about what's been a really busy time for Matchbook, Sully.
Yeah, exceptionally busy week, Phil, with us back in the UK. Delighted to be back in the UK. For all UK residents. Some of the games during the week, some pretty interesting bets going down. Lyon, especially, to qualify, I think they were pretty much 7 or 8 to 1 across the sport books. You could have got back to the 13.0, 14.0 at Matchbook, and a couple of shrewdies were on. I don't know, did they just see Pep Guardiola's 3-man defensive formation at the start, or what the hell was going on, but they were on. I don't know if any of the other lads were on Lyon to qualify. But yeah, it's been a pretty interesting and a very busy week at Matchbook.
We're very privileged to have Ian Broadrick and Mark O'Hare, not just because of their expertise, but particularly, I think, for these semi-finals, because Mark and Ian watch probably more German and French football than they really should. But that means it's very good. They can give us a really good insight on these two fascinating Champions League semi-finals. Mark, hello, welcome. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, Phil. Well, I'm still pretty raw and emotional, probably a bit heartbroken, actually, after Atalanta's exit last week. More so than I probably should be, really. But I think Matchbook podcast listeners, going back to September, we put up Leipzig as potential outsiders as a back-to-trade option at 70 to 1. I think they're trading around 10 to 1 now. So, yeah, a good opportunity to get out if you want, or listen to what we're going to say later, because I think Brothers is quite keen still on his PSG bandwagon.
You were heartbroken at Atalanta's exit. I think the only man outside of the French capital absolutely delighted at PSG going through was Brothers, who's been backing PSG to win the Champions League every year for the last 20 years. This year it might actually happen. It might actually happen, Brothers.
Well, you know, until Bayern smashed them in the final, yeah.
Optimistic as ever. But no, I mean, it is a fascinating Champions League semi-final lineup, and an unexpected one, Brothers, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, Lyon have surprised quite a few people with their run, and you know, especially after finishing 7th in the French league and not having played for so long and not looking great in their game against PSG and so on. So yeah, Lyon have obviously been the big surprise so far. But it's yeah, I mean, it's just been amazing to have it back, hasn't it? I mean, most of the games have been fantastic, even ones that you might think, you know, on the face of it, might be a bit more dull, even like last night's game, you know, the Sevilla Man United game, for example, in the Europa. But all of these matches have just been great to watch and great fun.
I think we've just got to back goals in every game, don't we? Because yesterday, Sevilla United, I felt personally that was an unders. It was an unders game, 100%, and it came out with those 3 goals. It just feels like there've been goals in every single game. Both teams to score have paid out in practically every game. So yeah, back goals. That's my opinion anyway. We'll hear what the guys say in just a moment. Let's get into the games then. Sully, what's the prices for the Lyon Bayern game?
Yeah, just going to bring them up on a screen there now. Phil, current betting Matchbook. No surprise, you can back Lyon there at 13.0. Bayern Munich 1.26. That actually opened at 1.32. And even 1.32 at that stage was a very good bet for a lot of people. So the handicaps are a bit all over this morning. The markets are reforming a bit. Bayern minus 2.0, 2.05. There's a lot of 1.75 around as well, but that's good odds on now. And 3.5 is the main goal line. No surprise, Phil. Everyone wants to be with Bayern.
I also saw in the outright market you can get Bayern at around 1.59, which
1.6, yeah, absolutely. It's just probably a bet to nothing right now. Yeah,
it doesn't look like a bad bet considering their record, and they've just been steamrolling everyone. Mark, what's going to happen then in this game? Because Bayern, massive favourites. They've what is it, 39 goals, 9 wins out of 9. They've just looked so strong. Surely they're going to beat the side that finished 7th in Ligue 1.
Yeah, you would expect so. I mean, the big question for me coming into this game is not how many goals Bayern Munich can score. It's we know they can take any team to the cleaners. They've scored 155 goals across all competitions this season, which is just crazy. But it's just how successful Lyon can be in stifling them. The market doesn't give them much chance at all, less than 8% chance of winning the game in 90 minutes. I don't have the records to hand, but I assume that's possibly one of the biggest prices we'll ever see in a Champions League semi-final. And I guess it's kind of partly based on how they did progress against Juventus and Man City. They came through quite a soft group, actually, in the group stage, but I thought they were fantastic against Juventus in the first leg. Then did the job in Turin, which they needed to do. They've actually lost that match, people forget, but went through on away goals. I guess understandably the finger gets pointed at Sarri and Juventus's lack of attention and inspiration and whatnot. And Lyon did defend reasonably well, but they still conceded over 3 expected goals in Turin. And even without the penalty, that's quite a healthy sum. You go back to the City game then, where all the attention has been on Guardiola overthinking things and getting his system wrong and his team selection wrong, which is all valid arguments. When you got the likes of Foden, Bernardo, David Silva and Mahrez on the bench and barely used, City were really, really poor. But you look at the sort of decisive moments and, goals change games, as they say, and they are the most important fact and stat at the end of the game. Sterling's miss when 2-1 down, game could have easily gone differently. But even Lyon's second goal, which could and shouldn't probably have been allowed as well. Ederson then makes a rare mistake for the third as well. You got your best centre-half, Laporte, playing awfully. It was just one of those nights really for City. And you look at Lyon, they scored 3 goals from 0.87 expected goals, conceded nearly 3 again. They were just clinical on the counter, defended really diligently, worked their socks off. Deserved winners in my eyes, because City were poor and Guardiola deserved his comeuppance really for that selection and that sort of approach. But City did have a stinker and Lyon were efficient. So I don't think Bayern Munich are going to be in the same sort of breadth of allowing them the same opportunities. Yes, they'll play a high line and there will be chances for Lyon going forward. But I don't think Ryan are anywhere near as kind of soft as City are. They'll be ruthless in this game. So, yeah, it's going to be really difficult for Lyon. But obviously you have to sort of side with Bayern.
Bayern, as we said, have won 9 out of 9 in the Champions League this season. Brothers, Lyon have only won 4 games in the Champions League this season. They've lost to Benfica, they lost to Zenit St. Petersburg, and they also lost in Turin, as Mark suggested. I was checking their record in Ligue 1. They lost home and away against PSG as well. There doesn't seem to be, well, what's the angle in terms of backing Bayern here? Because surely it has to be backing Bayern.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Mark, and I think, yes, the angle is backing Bayern. I mean, if you look at their 9 wins, they've also won 7 of those 9 games by 3 or more goals. Obviously, the Barcelona and Spurs matches, sorry, Phil, stand out. But, they won one of the other games, they won by 2 goals. And then the only
Spurs did better than Barcelona, I'm just saying. It was only 7.
You beat Barcelona 1-0. I mean, that is clear, isn't it? I think there's a lot to sort of agree with Mark there. I mean, to be honest with you, I mean, in terms of how Lyon will set up, I think they have to try and do what they did against Manchester City, which is be solid, play 5 at the back, try and sort of flood the midfield and stop Bayern from getting in. But Bayern have got so many different ways of hurting you. I mean, if they don't play through the middle, they'll go out wide, and they've got the aerial ability to throw crosses in and to get in behind you. They look a complete team at the moment. I think there is some suggestion that Benjamin Pavard may be fit for this game, although I suspect that if he does return, it'll probably be on the bench. And they just have so much strength and so many options. It's incredibly hard to see how they would fail in this match, other than by some sort of overconfidence or a similar situation to the Lyon Man City game, where Lyon were lucky. I mean, for want of a better term, when you have an XG of 0.8, as Mark says, and score 3 goals, you've outperformed the expectations significantly.
Okay.
Can I just ask one question, Phil? I just want to jump in and just ask the guy's opinion there. So obviously we're thinking Bayern Munich are pretty bulletproof, but I want to play a small bit of devil's advocate here. Like the 2 central defenders the last night, again, Alaba and Boateng, they looked a bit dodgy at times, and obviously they got that big lead and they were comfortable thereafter. But is there any kind of angle there that we could look at exploiting, regards the Bayern central defence? Mark,
yeah, I mean, Bayern have only kept 2 clean sheets in their last 9 games. they're not a side that keeps clean sheets regularly, because they just go out there and score, so many goals. They can afford to do that. So I wouldn't surprise me at all to see Lyon score in this game, to be honest with you. And I think, the angle that I would approach it from, other than I think that the handicaps are solid, is goals as well. Because I think this game, especially with a knockout format, almost has to have goals, the way that the team's set up. I mean, one thing that Lyon, it's interesting that it looks like Depay is still struggling for me. I don't know how Mark feels about this, but he's come back from obviously a serious knee injury, and he looks off the pace to me in the last couple of games. He's been substituted on the hour. It will be interesting to see whether or not Dembele actually gets the nod in this match to try and utilise his pace, get behind that Bayern high line. And perhaps Depay is used in reserve for coming on for the second half or for a period of time where they need to chase the game. But the biggest issue Lyon have got is that if they do fall behind, they've got to abandon their shape to a certain extent and try and hurt this Bayern side, and then that's just going to leave them even further open to Bayern and the way that they play. So honestly, I can't see any way out of this for Lyon, if I'm honest. So
we don't think they can win. Can they score at least, Mark?
Yeah, absolutely. I think they can. Broadrick made a good case there for it. But you talk about the high line, and certainly that's an area that Barcelona weren't able to exploit as much as they probably should have, because I don't think they had the pace in forward areas to really hurt them. And you look at the Bayern defence, or Bayern actually, when they set up with the ball, they're so compact, they're so high. The idea being to force the opposition back into their own half and potentially turn over the ball, pressing them high, and that suddenly turns into an advantageous attacking position for them. But against Barcelona, they didn't have the pace to hurt them in behind. You've got the likes of Alphonso Davies and Alaba, two of the fastest defenders in the world game, which are able there to recover. But certainly if Dembele does play there, suddenly there's a massive threat there. Maxwell Cornet's got pace as well from the flanks. This team, they are capable. They have got some decent players in midfield. They're not just a run and rush team from the French league. They're very capable in certain positions also. And Bayern aren't massively secure. Their idea is still to go out and beat your teams by scoring more than them. And I guess when I look at this game from a handicap perspective, the 2-goal start does seem a little bit steep for a semi-final of a major tournament, especially so when your team has just come off a big thrashing as well. I think you go back to Germany and Brazil in 2014. Teams don't always back up those kind of statement performances with another. But I think, as Thomas Muller said after the game on Friday night, that this game was more important and more decisive, really, because the Bayern team dominated the match in almost every facet, whereas against Brazil, the Germans probably didn't do that despite the scoreline. I think you just have to look at the stats from that game against Barcelona. They had 26 shots, scored more goals than Barcelona had shots themselves. So, it's quite dangerous, really, for Lyon if they do have to come and chase this match. So I'd be taking it slightly more cautious and taking the -1 3/4 goal start, or hurdle, I should say, for Bayern Munich. They've won 20 of the last 28 games by at least a 2-goal margin. It just allows you a little bit more wiggle room than just taking the flat 2. But in terms of the goals market, yeah, absolutely. I'll be back in Lyon to score in this game, and both teams to score is around 1.8, which I think is absolutely fair enough. Just going on the lines, actually, PSG. I think Lyon were 8-1 when they went to PSG domestically back in February. The Asian handicap line was set at -1.5. That was at the Parc des Princes. They're obviously 12-1 here, and the Asian handicap line is set at 2 on a neutral venue. Now, I think we're all probably in agreement with Bayern a couple of shades better than PSG right now. So for me, the value still is there with Bayern just about, but I wouldn't be too surprised if it wasn't quite as comprehensive as probably the market might suggest.
1.80 for both teams to score. I like that a lot. That's yeah, okay, very good. Let's move on then and talk about the other semi-final between Leipzig and PSG. What are the prices there, Sally?
Yeah, Brothers, I can't wait for Brothers taking this one. Leipzig at 4.6 currently, Phil. You can back PSG at 1.83. That actually opened a lot shorter. It was about 1.7, but I think it quickly got kind of hammered back up again. The main handicap line right now, PSG -3/4 goal. It's odds against. I think there's still a bit of odds on there at -0.5 goal, and flat 3, slightly favouring the under is the goal line right now. Come on, Leipzig, Brothers. That's all I got to say there, Brothers. Come on, Leipzig.
Again, Brothers is going against, I think, popular opinion. I think most neutrals will be supporting Leipzig, but obviously Brothers is very much in the PSG camp. But I have to say 1.83 almost for PSG to win in 90 minutes against Leipzig, it could be pretty tempting. What are you looking at here, brothers?
I think PSG will win. I think one of the interesting facets of this game is that the PSG injury situation and players recovering and getting injured and so on, and what sort of team they're going to put out. So, for example, they've already said Keylor Navas is going to be unfit and isn't going to play any part in the semi-final. Similarly, Idrissa Gueye picked up an injury and is looking like he's going to miss this game, which I think is an important aspect for them, because central midfield for them was definitely an area of weakness in the last game. And then you've got the flip side of that, and you've got Mbappe getting fitter and fitter and looking like he's likely to start in this match. And there's an outside chance of Verratti playing some part. And Verratti is an incredibly important player for them in that central midfield. He does so much of the hard work to allow the likes of Neymar and Di Maria and Mbappe to really flourish. But Di Maria coming back from suspension as well. So, what you're likely to see is Sarabia and Gueye, I guess, coming out of the team, replaced with Di Maria and Mbappe. And I don't think anyone could argue that was anything other than a massive upgrade. I mean, you only had to see how Mbappe influenced the match when he came on against Atalanta. PSG are a totally different side when he plays, which is, is stating the obvious. I mean, this guy's 21 and he's arguably, very easily in the top 5 players in the world already. And he's just an unbelievable player. And his link-up play with Neymar is incredibly important to PSG in the way that they play, because you saw in the first hour or so against Atalanta, Neymar played beautifully. He was fantastic. But he just couldn't link with Cardi, he couldn't link up with Sarabia. They were missing Di Maria's creativity as well. And PSG, they struggled for that until Mbappe came on and Atalanta tied in that last half hour. It really looked as though Atalanta would make Mark's dreams come true. But I think, when you're looking at this PSG side and assessing them, you have to assess them with Mbappe and Neymar playing to their full potential. And Leipzig defensively are poor. They let in too many goals. They're missing Konate at the back. I know Upamecano had a stunning match and rightly got a lot of plaudits in the last game. But also, I'm sure having watched a lot of Bundesliga this year, Mark would agree. Upamecano is very capable of throwing in some very sort of naive defending at times. In terms of losing markers and losing men, he was a monster in that quarterfinal. But they do miss Konate alongside him, who's another similar young, brilliant French centre half who's strong and quick. And I think Leipzig's best chance in this game is to outscore PSG, because PSG's defensively, we've seen again, are not going to be keeping any clean sheets anytime soon. Leipzig have got a ton of options going forward. I don't think they will miss Werner as much as some people think. Werner is a fabulous signing for Chelsea, and he's a great young player. But he was quite wasteful in terms of the number of chances that he'd need to score. I mean, he scored a lot of goals, but he needed a lot of chances. And the fact that Leipzig create those chances, they have the likes of Nkunku, who's a very similar player to Werner in some ways, with his pace and maybe a bit profligate in front of goal. But they've got Olmo, they've got Sabitzer, they've got Poulsen. They've got a lot of players who can hurt PSG. So, in terms of the angle for me on this game, the safest angle is goals, in my opinion. I think, looking at the over 3 goal line is a very, very fair bet. I can't see any situation where there's less than 3 goals in this game, to be honest with you. I'm sure Mark will come in at 2.75 because, these lines are Mark. But, in terms of, how to approach it, I think PSG are priced correctly. I honestly do think they will win. I think, odds of around 1.8 or just over are probably a fair reflection because without Verratti, that central midfield area is an area of weakness for them, and teams can get at them. So, I wouldn't be rushing to handicap PSG in this game, but I do think they'll win, and I do think there'll be plenty of goals.
When they managed to make it through to the semi-finals, beating Atalanta in the quarters in the most dramatic of fashion, it was interesting to see the reaction of the PSG players. They weren't sort of whooping with delight. They just looked relieved. They were almost a little bit terrified and then relieved. The pressure is on them.
Yeah, you can't underestimate what a massive psychological hurdle that was for them, because there's
huge.
So much pressure, and they've not got past that quarterfinal stage. in recent history, and it's been a massive deal for them. And you almost feel like they're free rolling now psychologically. I mean, not Tuchel.
Or are they? Because they're such big favourites. They're such big favourites against Leipzig.
Tuchel has to win. Tuchel has to win the Champions League to keep his job, I think. Especially with the likes of Pochettino and Allegri and other great managers who are not working at the moment. I think Tuchel has to win the Champions League. But as the players, I honestly think they've overcome quite a big psychological hurdle. Whether or not they do their PSG trick of being favourites for a semi-final and then just messing it up totally, of course that could happen. It wouldn't be the biggest shock in the world, would it? But I think, in terms of pure talent, they really should win this game.
There was a nice anecdote I heard about Julian Nagelsmann and Thomas Tuchel, who know each other very well. Indeed, it was Thomas Tuchel who gave Julian Nagelsmann his first sort of taste of management, or what it was like to work in management areas. They were both at Augsburg B in Germany. Tuchel was the manager. Nagelsmann was a very young and very injured defender who wasn't really playing very much. So Tuchel said, "Can you start doing some scouting reports for me on the opposition?" So that's how he took his first step into management, and then a few years later, here they are coming up against each other in a Champions League semi-final. Can Nagelsmann spring a surprise, Mark, on his former manager?
I think he can, but absolutely. This is one of the brightest young minds in world football at the moment, and I think stylistically this suits Leipzig a lot more than Atletico would have. Very few times will Leipzig have come up across a team as physically strong or defensively resilient as Atletico have, especially in the Bundesliga, where teams are anything but pragmatic. So, and I also think the Werner absence, contrary to what Brothers was saying, might be slightly key in this game compared to the Atletico match, where space and Atletico don't really allow you that opportunity to run in behind too often. Whereas I think that opportunity might be around a little bit more this time around against PSG. But I thought it was really refreshing actually to see Leipzig approach that game against Atletico, because I thought it was an outstanding performance, full of personality and character. I thought they kept the ball really well. They took their chances. I thought they were brave in terms of keep playing the ball out from the back, and I think they deserved to win. I certainly didn't expect them to be quite so proactive in that match. I thought they might kind of stand back and see what Atletico were going to do, but also without the ball, I thought they were quite savvy in terms of their spoiling tactics, kind of beating Atletico at their own game, really, kind of disrupting the play, making tactical fouls here and there. The only time they really looked uncomfortable was when João Felix came off the bench, and I think that is probably a concern when you look at what Neymar and Mbappe can do to teams. But I think coming into this match, stylistically, it could suit them a little bit. They'll be able to play in transitions a lot more, but I don't really disagree with the prices either. I think PSG do deserve to be favourites. I think, for me, probably closer to about 1.95 and for 1.8, but even still, I wouldn't want to be sort of taking them on at those prices or opposing them either. So for the PSG, from my mind, I know it's not really sour grapes at all. I didn't think they deserved to win the game in 90 minutes against Atalanta. I certainly agree they would have won the game in extra time, but for what we saw, they only really played for 30 minutes, and that was on the key hour mark where Papu Gomez had to go off injured and Mbappe entered the field. And really, what did they do before that, apart from Neymar missing one absolute sitter? I don't think the other chances were as quite straightforward as people made out they were. But so I think there's a lot to ask for here, and Brothers has already touched on it in terms of the midfield. Di Maria's return is a big tick. They really need Verratti, really, for me to make them a solid bet at the prices they are at the moment. So I do think they're most likely winners, but I certainly wouldn't be backing in them at the prices. And I think coming into this match, I kind of look at them at 1.8 at the moment on neutral territory against a Leipzig side that finished 3 points off Dortmund. They also held Bayern Munich home and away in the Bundesliga, it shouldn't be forgotten. And PSG were 1.88 at home to Dortmund in March. They're obviously shorter than that price for neutral turf coming into this game. Leipzig 2.35 hosting Dortmund, 6.5 away at Bayern. So the market likes Leipzig, so I'm not really sure where the sort of deficit is coming in here. So for me, I would have liked Leipzig +1 on the Asian line. It's not possible, obviously. I would have liked BTTS. It's not possible because of the prices, obviously. So I gravitate towards Brothers as well, looking at a goal-filled game over 2 3/4 for me at 1.76. I'm still actually a little bit tentative about it because whilst PSG have scored in the last 33 Champions League games, I think that's one game off a record, actually. We do expect them to score. Leipzig obviously prefer to play front foot, high-pressing football too, but those games against Bayern Munich, they didn't do that. They actually sat back and see, in terms of what are you going to do to us, Bayern Munich? And I think Nagelsmann has that in his pocket. He is able to sort of contain and counter, if you like, a lot more than probably other teams are able to. So for me, it's about sitting back, just seeing what Leipzig are going to do. Probably an hour before kickoff, really, when we see the team sheets, get a bit of an idea of how they're going to approach this game, because their approach to me is key. But I just want to make a really quick point as well on the Europa League, because Brothers made a really salient point about one-legged knockout matches, kind of basically opposing the unders, really. I fell into that trap with the Sevilla United game, which we talked about at the start, and it was surprisingly open from the very off, and the market certainly moved that way towards the, on the day of the game, which surprised me as well. So clearly big punters were fancying goals in that game. So obviously the early goal can blow the cobwebs off things early doors too. So if we do get an early goal, it could be anything here. But if Leipzig do sit back and try and contain from the off, it might not be as quite open and wild as we're probably hoping it to be expected to be. But if I have to have a bet, and I have to admit, it's not a game I'm really approaching with any sort of confidence. It probably would be towards the overs and over 2 3/4.
Did you take Leipzig on in the anti-post market as you tipped?
No.
No.
He just told everyone else to do it, but just didn't do himself. But man, Mark.
Let's just be clear. I backed Leipzig at 80. So
oh wow, okay.
They're actually a better result for me than PSG. But I do want to.
Beat me again, Brothers.
Right. Okay. Before we go, let's get your best bets for this round of fixtures in the Champions League. It is the Champions League semi-finals, and we've got 2 fantastic games. Brothers, your best bet for the Champions League semi-finals?
I will take Bayern -2 on the Asians. I don't see them winning the game. I don't see them not winning by 2 or more. So.
Okay. And Mark, your best bet for the Champions League semi-finals?
Would have been Bayern -1 3/4, but I'll take BTTS now just to be a bit different. But I do expect Lyon to score.
Okay, both teams to score. Very good indeed. That's it for this edition of the Matchbook Champions League podcast. However, we are going to be back later in the week to look ahead to the final. The football is non-stop, so the podcasts are non-stop as well. More content coming your way later this week. Remember to subscribe if you haven't. If you're listening to this podcast rather than watching to us, subscribe on your preferred podcasting app. And if you're watching us, thanks very much for watching. We'll be back later in the week to look ahead to the Champions League final. We'll see you then.